Hashem, today's Daf Yomi is Menachos Daf Mem Gimel, Menachos 43. We'll start on the bottom of Mem Beis and Beis, 6 lines from the bottom, 5 lines from the bottom. The Gemara says, Tan Rabbanan Techelet Elam Bedika, that Techeles require, there's no way to check it. So Rashi says the assumption is at this point in the Gemara that a person cannot check if it's actually Techeles, which comes from the Chila zone, from this type of snail, or if it is from the Kala Ilan, which is the indigo. Ve'ein nikles ela min mumcha, and also a tcheles, it can only be purchased from a mumcha, from a person who's an expert and can determine whether or not it is tcheles or Kala Ilan. Tefillin yesh lahem bedika. Tefillin can be inspected. Rashi says they could be inspected for chaseros or yuseros. You could see if it's missing letters or not. But nevertheless, it says in the Gemara, even though you could check them for chaseros and yuseros, still can only purchase it from an expert because we want to make sure that the ibud, the preparation of the parchment, was done lishma. And Tosfos here cites Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, the only time in Shas that he cites him, which says that the tefillin requires the ibud lishma, but Sefer Torah and mezuzah do not require ibud lishma according to the Rambam. And the reason is, and Rambam doesn't cite a source, so Tosfos says maybe this is the source. But anyway, that's the only time the Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon is cited by Tosfos. Sfarim and mezuzos yesh lahem bedika. The Sfarim and mezuzos, the Sefer Torah and the mezuzah, you can check them to see for chatzeres or aseres, but nicham mikol adam, and you can purchase them from everybody because they don't require the ibud lishma. So now the Gemara says, "V'tchelas ela bedika." Is it really the case that there's no way to check the tchelas? But we do have methods of checking to see if it's tchelas or Kala Ilan. Rav Yitzchak Bereder Rav Yehuda Badikle. Rav Yitzchak Bereder Rav Yehuda did check to see if it was tchelas, and the way he checked it was siman begeshem, with these 3 letters, geshem. Maisi magbia kila. He would bring these detergents like an alam umaya de shavulisa, and fenugreek sap, umeme raglayim, and urine then arba'im yom, either from a child who was 40 days old or urine that had sat there for 40 days. V'tarle begavayim ortavat utzafra, we're on the top of 43a, and he would soak it in it from the evening until the morning. You had a question, Deborah? No, okay, fine. So the Ifrad Chazuse, if the color was diminished, psula, then we're going to say it became disqualified, because it's obviously Kal Ilan and not Chelas. Lo Ifrad Chazuse, Kshera. The color did not get diminished, it was Kshera. And Ravada Kamei the Rav Mishmei the Rav Ivra Amar, he said a different method. Maisi Chamira Arkasa de Sa'ira. They would bring like some hard sourdough, some hard yeast, and they would put the tcheles or the Kal Ilan inside the yeast, and they would bake it. Ishtani l'mal yusak shero grusa psula. If it got to be a better color, then it was kosher, and if it got to be a worse color, it was disqualified. V'simanech shinoi sheker, shinoi emes, and the way to remember is if it got worse, it was sheker. If it got better, it was true. But so anyway, we see from here that you can check the tcheles. So the Gemara says, "No, what does it mean? My tcheles ela bedika. What does it mean when we say that tcheles there is no bedika on it? What does that mean that you can't check the tcheles?" So the Gemara says, "Nami dika amar atima." No, what it means is it's not referring to the tcheles. It means a person can check if they did the dyeing for te'ima or for the tzitzis. If you did it just to test it to see if it would work, or if you did it actually for the tzitzis. If you did it just to test it, it's not kosher. Even though it's tleilas, it has to be done with shema. So Mar Mamashli, I see Tchelasa B'Shane Ravachai. So Mar Mamashki, so this was a person from this place called Mamashki. Rashi says here, Mar is Shem Chacham, that Mar is a name of a scholar. Usually Mar is not the name of a scholar, it's just an introduction like Mr. or the sage. But here, unusually, his name is Mar, Rashi says, and he comes from Mamashki, the name of a place. And he used to, he brought Tcheles in the year of Ravachai. So Rav Achai, when Rav Achai is mentioned in the Talmud, is usually a very, very late reference to Rav Achai Gaon. This is a very late incident, and he's still at Techeles. And but Kua, meaning say we're talking in the 7th or 8th centuries. But Kua b'Rav Yitzchak b'Rav Yehuda v'Ifrid Chazusei. So they tried the method where they soaked it in urine and alum and fenugreek sap, and it got worse. Bidrav Ada v'Ishtane l'mal Yusa. But then they tried baking it, and it actually got better. Savar l'Mifsa. I said, well, it's disqualified because the first method, it got worse. Amar Lahu Rav Achai. Rav Achai said, well, if it got better, so that proves it's not the indigo, and it got worse. So that, would you say it's not tchelos? It's got to be one or the other. There's either tchelos or kala ilan. So we see that the two teachings are together. Well, Ifrid Chazusa Kshera. Ifrid Chazusa, but Kinolay B'Rav Ada, B'Chamira Arkasa. Ishtanel Malyusa Kshera, Guriusa Psua. He says we do both methods. If the first method it didn't work to prove it was chelef, then you do the second method. Means that you have two tests that you can determine. If it passes one of the tests, then it proves it's chelef and not chalilan. Good morning, Jeff. We're on 43a, around 20 lines from the top. So the Gemara says, Shalchom mitam, they sent the message from there. Well, where's there? Now we're already late. We're talking 7th or 8th century Babylon. There is not a scholarly community sending messages from Eretz Yisrael. So it's probably from a different city in Babylon. Shmuasa Dadi Idmar. Indeed, they sent this message, but these were two teachings that were going together. Meaning, say they were not mutually exclusive, but they were saying if the first method doesn't work, try the second method. Rav Mani Diek Vizabin Kuchumrei Masnisa. Rav Mani used to he would be careful, and he when he bought tzitzis, he would be careful to buy them from an expert. Kuchumrei Masnisa, like the Brisa said, that you have to buy the tchelos only from an expert. This is what they used to do in the earlier generations. And their business was successful. You buy the tchelos the right way, you're going to make a good living. He was the Judaica shop at the time. Let's say you want to buy a garment with tzitzis on it. You want to buy a talis. So you want to buy it from the marketplace in Yisrael. If you buy it from a Jew, that's okay. But if you want to buy it from an idolater, if you buy it minatag, or if you buy it from a merchant, we could assume it's kshera. We can assume if you buy it from the merchant, it's kshera, because Rashi says, he's not going to ruin himself because he'll ruin his whole business. And so therefore, he's going to purchase it from a kosher Jew, and we can assume that if he got it from an idolater, he's getting it from a kosher stores. If he gets it from an idolater as a businessman, but if he just gets it from an idolater off the street, who's not necessarily a Judaica dealer, it's disqualified. Why? How did he get it? Even though we've studied, a person's not allowed to sell a talis with tzitzis on it to an idolater until he removes the tzitzis. So even though typically speaking, he's not allowed to get it because you can't sell a talis to an idolater. Nevertheless, my time. What's the reason why you can't sell it to an idolater? Because of a zona. Rashi gives zona is a prostitute. What's the concern for a zona? Rashi says, first of all, maybe it was a Jewish zona, and she'll think that this person comes in with the tzitzis, this idolater comes in, she'll think he's Jewish and she'll have relations with him, which is not allowed. Or alternatively, it's a non-Jewish zona, and she'll think the guy is Jewish and he's coming to visit the zona, and she's going to spread, um, and she's going to suspect him of being a sinner. Okay, so and Rav Yehuda Amar Shemi Yitloem B'derech V'Yarguo, that even though and Rav Yehuda says that maybe you can't sell it to the talis to an idolater because maybe he'll disguise himself as a Jew, or the Jew you won't be suspicious of him on the road and he'll kill the Jew. But in this case, you're allowed to sell it to the merchant because we assume that these concerns won't apply. We could assume that in this case that a Jewish merchant sold it to him. Rabbi Yehuda Ramit Chelta Parzuma the Inche Beisa. Rabbi Yehuda put the tchelas on the garments of the women of his house. When Mevarach called Safran, he would say the blessing on them every morning is atif b'tzitzis, to wrap himself in tzitzis. Midirami, from the fact that he put the tcheles, kasavar mitzvah saseshal is mangrama. It means to say, since he put it on his wife's talis, his wife's garment, it means he says it's not a time-bound positive commandment because his wife doesn't have to keep time-bound positive commandments. But if that's the case, why did he make the blessing every morning if it's not a daily commandment? So, and why specifically in the morning? So the Gemara says Rebbe. Tanya is like Rebbe who taught tefillin calls man shemenichim mevarchoin. Rebbe. Every time you put them on, you make the blessing. So he put them on in the morning, so that's why I made the blessing. Well, if that's the case, Yachai Kol Shata Nami. Well, if that's the case, every time he put it on, not just in the morning. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda inish tzniyahu. Rabbi Yehuda was a modest man. Well, he didn't take off his clothes. He didn't take off his clothes the whole day. So therefore, he only put it on once. So the Gemara says, well, my mevara called tzafar v'tzafar. So he says, Umayishna mitzafra. Well, why specifically in the morning? It should be when he put it on. He could put it on at night when he wakes up. So the Gemara says, Kimishani miksus lailo ksus yom. He put it on when he changed his garment from the nighttime garment, which wasn't required, to the daytime clothing. Then it was required. Dan Rabbanon hakol chayavim b'tzitzis. Everybody has to wear tzitzis. Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, Gerim, Nashim, Vavadim. According to the Tanna Kama, everybody wears tzitzis, whether they're Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, converts, or women and Avadim. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Shimon Poter ben Nashim, Rabbi Shimon exempts women in nation mitzvah saseshes mangramahu. Rabbi Shimon says women are not obligated because it's time-bound positive commandment. The kol mitzvah saseshes mangrama, and any time-bound positive commandment, nashim beturos, women are exempt. So let's analyze this source. Amar Mara kol chayavim betzitzis kohanim levim Yisraelim. Kohanim levim and Yisraelim are all obligated. Well, pshita, well that's obvious. Kohanim levim Yisraelim patiri, if they're exempt, man l'chayev, who else is obligated? So the Gemara says, no, it's teaching us about Kohanim. Kohanim, it's tzvichol. Telling us Kohanim are obligated. So we might have thought, since it says you're not allowed to wear wool and linen together, and then it says gedilim ta'selach, and then afterwards it says you should make tzitzis. So you might have thought, Mando ishtri kolayim legave b'lavisha. Anyone who's not allowed to wear shatnes should wear the tzitzis. But Hani Kohanim, but the Kohanim, all the Ishtri Kohanim Lagabayel. But since the Kohanim, the Kohen Gadol used to wear on his belt, it was made out of shatnes. It was made out of wool and linen. So since the Kohanim were allowed to wear Kohanim, I might have thought, well, that they can't wear, that they're not obligated tzitzis. Kamash Milan. So we learned from this price in the history be'eden avoda. Yes, it's allowed to wear the shanes when the Kohen Gadol is serving, but below eden avoda. But when he's not serving, lo ishtri, then he's not allowed to wear it. Rabbi Shimon Poter ben Nashim. Rabbi Shimon says women are exempt from tzitzis. My time. Rabbi Shimon, what's the reason? Titania or isim also, because it says you have to see the tzitzis, which means pratluk suslaila. But so you don't or tzitzis when you're wearing nighttime clothing. I told me I don't have praluk. Maybe it excludes a blind person, not nighttime clothing. It says no, that you cover yourself in it. Hare, so when it says asher techaseba suma amor, that refers to a blind person because he also covers himself. Amani mekayim or isimo. So what does it mean that you shall see it? That it means praluk susla excludes the one who wears the clothing at night. The nighttime clothing are exempt. And so therefore women are exempt because it's time bound positive. Why are you excluding why are you including the blind man in the mitzvah and excluding the nighttime garments? I include the blind man's garment because other people see it. I'll exclude the nighttime garments because other people don't see it. The Rabbanan who say that it's not a time-bound positive commandment. What do they do with the verse Asher Techaseba, which Rabbi Shimon says includes a blind man? They learn it out the following: you should put the tzitzis on your four corners of your garment. Arba v'lo shalosh. Four, but not if it's a three-corner garment. I tell me arba v'lo shalosh, arba v'lo chamesh. Maybe also if it's not a five-corner garment. You also don't require if it's a five-corner garment. I might think you're not required. So the words asher techaseba come to include have a bawas chamesh amor. That's teaching us also a five-cornered garment required. Mani mekayim al arba v'lo shalosh. When it says in the verse 4, it means 4, not 3. Why are you including a five-cornered garment in tzitzis and excluding a three-cornered garment? Include a five-cornered because the five corners have 4. And I'll exclude the 3 because the 3 does not have 4. The Rabbi Shimon, how does Rabbi Shimon know this law? He learned it out me Asher not. Asher techaseba, he learned that from the word Asher. Rabbanan Asher will mashma. The rabbis don't learn out anything from that word Asher. Rabbanan hay or isimo. So what do the rabbis do with isimo? So which Rabbi Shimon says excludes nighttime clothing. What do the Rabbanan do with that? They say it's like the following price. Isimo so zachartem. They learn it for a drasha. We'll see a few explanations of the words you shall see it. So they say like you shall see it, uzachartem, you shall see it, uzachartem, and you'll remember. Re'ei mitzvah zu, see this mitzvah, uzachor mitzvah cheres, hatluya, and you'll remember another commandment which is connected to it. Ve'zuzu, what's that? Kriya Shema. See the mitzvah of tzitzis and you remember Shema. Why? How? The Tanam, you must like Korna Shema b'shachris. At what point do you read the Shema? In the morning, when you can distinguish between the white threads and the lavan threads, the blue threads. That's when you're obligated to recite the Shema. So we see from here that when you could see when you see the tzitzis, you remember the mitzvah of Shema. Another price it says, you shall see it and you remember. When you see this mitzvah, you'll remember a different mitzvah. Zu mitzvahs koyim. You remember the mitzvah of koyim, of shatnes. T'chsev los shalbash shatnes. Temer pishim yachtav gedilim ta'aselach. Do not wear shatnes, wool and linen together. Gedilim ta'aselach. Tanya idach. Another brayso says, ureisem oso uzachartem es kol mitzvahs Hashem. You shall see it and you remember all the mitzvahs of Hashem. Kivin, since it says kol mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs. Kivin shenischayev adam mitzvah zu, nischayev a mitzvah kol mitzvahs kol. Since you're obligated in this mitzvah. Rashi says, because when the morning rises, when the sun rises, you're obligated in this mitzvah. That's when you're obligated in all the mitzvahs of the day. Rabbi Shimon, and this follows the position of Rabbi Shimon, who says mitzvah sasesha is man grami. It's a time-bound positive commandment. Another explanation of Re'isimoso, Tanya Idach, Re'isimoso was a chartim as kol mitzvahs Hashem. You will see this, you'll see it and you remember all the commandments of God. Shekua mitzvah zu kineged kol mitzvahs kuan. This mitzvah is equivalent to all the mitzvahs. Rashi says because the gematria of tzitzis is 600 and there are 5 knots on each corner and plus 8 strings. That gets us to 613. The Tanya Idach, another price that says you will see it and then you'll remember it and you will do. You'll do it. Re'iyah may view day zechira, and zechira may view day asiyah. Seeing will bring you to doing. Seeing will bring you to remembering, and remembering will bring you to doing. Rabbi Shimon Yochai Omer, whoever is careful about, zealous to do this mitzvah, will merit to greet the face of the divine. So it says here, you will see it. So since it says in both places, so just like there, you will see God, fear God. Here too, if you see the tzitzis, you have the awe of God. Tan Rabbanan Chavivin Yisrael Shesivan Hakadosh Baruch Hu b'mitzvos tefillin b'roshein. The Shesivan Hakadosh Baruch Hu b'mitzvos. How precious are the Jewish people, where God surrounds them with commandments, with commandments. Tefillin b'roshein, where the tefillin on their head, tefillin b'roshein, tefillin on their arms. Tzitzis b'bigdein, tzitzis on their garments, umezuzah lepeslein, and a mezuzah on their doorways. Amar David, and this is why David says, Sheva b'yomi la'aticha mishpatei tzikecha. 7 every day I praised you on your righteous laws. What are the 7? Rashi says 4 mitzvahs of the tzitzis, the 2 tefillin, and 1 mezuzah. A little bit difficult because we said there's a dispute whether the tzitzis are 4 or 1. Anyway, so there's a discussion about that. When David went to the bath, so he was standing there with nothing on. He says, I'm naked without any mitzvos. Then he remembered the milah shebibsaro that he was circumcised, and he was appeased. After he left the bath, Shira, he composed a song. And this is Psalm 6. It says, Lamanatseach al Shminis, Lamanatseach for the 8th day. This is it could be either Psalm 12 or Psalm 6, but it should really be Psalm 8. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer kol sheyesh lo tefillin b'rosho tefillin b'zro tzitzis b'bigdom mezuzos b'pislo hakol b'chizuk shelo yachta. Whoever wears the tefillin is wearing the tzitzis. There's the mezuzah on his door. And then it's to strengthen him that he won't sin, as it says, the 3-bound cord will not falter so easily. So you have the tefillin, the tzitzis, and the mezuzah. That's a 3-bound cord. Va'amar God sets up, the angel of God camps around those who fear God, and he protects them. Tanya Rabbi Meir Omer, and why is tchelos singled out? Why is it different than all the other colors? Why specifically tchelos do we have to put on? The tchelos is similar to the sea. The yam rakia, the sea is similar to the heaven. The rakia is the heaven is similar to the throne of God, as it says, "V'tachas ra'agav k'masei v'nasa sapir u'ke'etzem hashemayim l'toar." Under the throne of God, like sapphire, uksiv k'marev and sapphire demut kisei, and that was so blue sapphire is what the throne of God looks like, and that's what the tchelos looks like. If you don't wear the white, that's worse than not wearing the tchelos. What's it like? A king of flesh and blood who said, we said to his 2 servants, to one of them he said, bring me a piece of clay. The other one he said, bring me gold. Both of them made a mistake and they didn't bring it. Which one of them has the worst punishment? The one who said, bring me the clay and didn't bring it, that's so easy to do, is to bring clay. He's going to get a worse punishment. Just do one more line. It's really a new topic, but I can't resist. Tanya Rabbi Meir Omer Chayev Adam Lavarech Brachos B'Kol Yom. A person has to make 100 blessings every single day, as it states, Hashem, what does Hashem ask from you? And Rashi says, what do we learn from this? Al tikri bakari be me'ah. Don't read it as what, but read it as 100. 100 blessings a day. Tosos Pirush Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam says, now what does it mean? What's the source for this? Says Rabbeinu Tam, how is this the source from the blessing? Says Rabbeinu Tam, Dahave. Hold on. Shoel Moe. He said, Ma Hashem Shoel with a Vav. V'yesh mea osios b'pasuk. There's 100 letters in that verse. Okay. Anyway, this is the idea that you have to recite 100 blessings every day to Hashem. That's what Hashem asks from you, and that will be our discussion for tomorrow's daf as we move along. Baruch Hashem with a beautiful daf in Menachos 43. All right, shkach to everybody, and I'll see you for davening.
Thank you.